The spectacle of nature is so magnificent. I've traveled all over the world in my time. I've been on safaris, all sorts of things. But you don't find this sort of phenomenon anywhere else. It's absolutely stunning to see millions of monarch butterflies in the same place. To see this phenomenon that we're experiencing now is very rare. It's truly a great thrill.
Jean Lauriault was born in the region of Outaouais in Quebec. He grew up in the countryside surrounded by nature and animals.
When I was young, I was interested in anything to do with nature. I had collections. When I was young, I had collections of birds' nests and branches. I had insect collections. I collected frogs. People often called me the insect boy. My brothers couldn't understand how someone could like insects, butterflies, mushrooms, and all those things.
Fascinated by everything to do with the environment, this biologist considers himself above all a popularizer and a communicator. Since the early 1990s, he's been particularly interested in protecting the monarch butterfly.
What fascinates me about the monarch butterfly is the unknown. There are so many things we don't yet know about the monarch butterfly.
These creatures have behaviors which are so diverse. It's infinite. It's amazing. If you're the slightest bit curious, you learn throughout your life. When we come to the end of the summer, around August, end of August, beginning of September, the butterfly generation born at that time won't be sexually mature. That's the generation that will leave our northern regions to go south to Mexico over winter.
There are so many things to discover about the monarch butterfly, but what fascinates me most is their migration.
As they travel to their overwintering site, the monarchs from the east of Canada and America are monitored throughout their journey.
The Monarch Watch program is a tagging program for monarch butterflies, which are then released so that we can find out their migratory routes, the speed they travel at down to Mexico, their exact path, and when they arrive in Mexico.
I've been tagging monarch butterflies for about 5 years. It's really like putting a message in a bottle and throwing it in the sea. You never know. Thousands and thousands of butterflies are tagged every year, and only a tiny number of them are found again.
As autumn arrives in Quebec, the monarch starts its journey of over 4,000 kilometers towards the mountains of Michoacan in the northwest of Mexico. This migratory phenomenon raises many questions. How can this small insect, weighing barely half a gram, find its way when it has never been there before?
We don't know many things. One thing we do know, though, is that the monarch butterflies, one way or another, will get to Mexico. How exactly they get there is still a mystery. They could use the sun, or they could use magnetism, or they could use ultraviolet waves, or some other sort of system, or a combination of all these systems to find their way to Mexico.
For several years now, Jean Lauriault has also travelled to Mexico to see the monarch in its overwintering site.
At the moment, we're on the motorway going to Angangueo. Angangueo is the little village where the colonies of monarch butterflies are found.
4 hours' drive from Mexico City lies the village of Angangueo, one of the entry points of the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve. The next day, Jean goes into the mountains surrounding the village at an altitude of some 2,500 meters. That's where the monarch colonies settle because they find the best overwintering conditions. Cool weather and a good level of humidity. To find the monarch butterfly colonies, Jean relies on Felipe Martinez, the biologist from the Biosphere Reserve.
There are about 10% more butterflies.
10% more than last year.
Yes, yes.
It's really not easy to see the colonies. You can't see these colonies from the motorway. You have to take a vehicle to get close to the overwintering site. Then you follow the trails, and sometimes those trails are very tough. There's a trail made by the people from the region, and we're going to follow it. We're going to go down the mountain to the bottom, and we'll be able to see them at the foot of the mountain.
Il y a un sentier qui a été fait par les gens de la région et on va prendre ce sentier-là, on va descendre la montagne jusqu'en bas, là, et on va être capable de les rencontrer en bas de la montagne.
It's something that's hard to describe, isn't it? It's so impressive. I've tried to explain this phenomenon to people loads of times. I love the silence. I love the sound of the monarch butterfly's wings. You could say we've come to a place that's like nowhere else. It's really an experience to sit down and listen to the sound of the monarch butterflies.
Actually, the first time I saw them, I thought they were dead leaves on the trees, until I stopped and discovered they were millions or thousands of butterflies. I couldn't tell.
The reason they're here is to spend the whole winter. You have to understand that when the monarch butterflies come here, they don't eat. They arrive here with a certain quantity of energy, and they have to get through the winter with that quantity of energy. So, one reason why they come here is to minimize the loss of energy. It's like a sort of refrigerator.
In order to protect the overwintering sites, in 1986, the Mexican government created the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve, which today extends over 560 square kilometers.
The people lost, in inverted commas, the right to do certain things. The right to live the way they used to live, the right to cut down trees, the right to farm in certain areas. So that changed their lives a great deal.
The majority of people reacted by getting angry. It annoyed them. It's an important part of their history. These lands are social property. The communities are the owners of their own territories. We have to recognize that they owned them since 1920, 30, 40.
Here, wood is a highly prized resource. In spite of the ban on cutting down trees in the reserve, Jean Lauriault noticed that several areas have suffered illegal logging.
I was here about 4 years ago and the people had just cut down the trees. It was done in one night. It was done very quickly. When the people came here, they were very well organized with equipment, and they were also armed. It's strictly forbidden for people to come here. The problem is that every tree equals a lot of dollars.
This is why clearings are gradually appearing in the forest. The situation is very worrying for Anida Montesinos, who has been studying the monarchs since 1993. She's particularly interested in the impact of deforestation on the survival of the butterflies.
These ones are trying to feed,
This afternoon, yes.
but the others are enjoying the sun. For the first time, a study has linked the survival of the butterflies to the quality of the forest. We found out several interesting things, one of which is that the main natural cause of mortality in monarch butterflies is predation.
The monarch is protected from certain predators by a toxin that comes from a plant, milkweed, which it feeds on as a caterpillar. However, this toxin has little effect on certain birds like the grosbeak and the oriole, which can eat up to 10 million butterflies over the winter.
What's that? Is it a lark?
It's like a lark.
Okay, orioles. We can hear orioles at this moment.
We've noticed that predation is much more intense where the forest is open, in sites where more trees have been cut down, compared to where it's more closed.
So by creating spaces, holes all over the forest, you change the microclimate, you change the temperature, and the monarch butterfly will move. It will fly more often, and if it flies, it loses energy. Then it won't have enough energy to start mating here and to start the return to Canada.
To conserve their energy, the butterflies remain packed against one another for a good part of the day. It's only when the temperature warms up that they fly off.
The monarch will wake up from time to time to drink, but it tries to stay as inactive as possible in order to conserve its fat reserves. It mustn't use them up too quickly.
It's essential for monarch butterflies to have streams nearby to drink from. If there's no water, they'll dry out, and that will make the survival of the butterflies more complicated.
There are threats affecting the monarch. Among other things, deforestation. Logging is a major thing. There's also the fact that the people now collect water. They divert the water that was used by the monarchs.
Since he's been going to Mexico, Jean has seen that it's not always easy to reconcile habitat conservation with the needs of the local people. The Altenaire organization has set up training programs to help locals make better use of the resources available.
We teach people different ways to use less wood. One way is to use the oven, which is more economical with wood.
Thank you for everything.
No, thank you. It was good to see you.
Yes, I'll buy some products.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
When we give these people new techniques, maybe they'll use less of the forest. Then we can keep the forest intact for the monarch butterflies and also for biodiversity.
The peasants have learnt to make their own bricks, which they use not only for building ovens, but also for houses. For every house built of these bricks, 15 trees can continue to grow in the forest.
Yes, but the campesinos will change their mindset after their training. But it's a question of time.
Around 250,000 people live on the land in the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve. Cohabitation is one of the main challenges to be faced. But it's not only in Mexico that the monarch's habitat needs to be protected. But how do you protect an insect that travels over thousands of kilometers? All along its migratory route towards the north, the monarch butterfly relies on milkweed to reproduce. The plant is found all over the North American continent. In order to protect habitats used by the monarch, Canada, the USA, and Mexico have drawn up the North American Monarch Conservation Plan. Jean Lauriault collaborated in the writing of this tripartite plan.
One of the actions proposed in the plan is to map the different species of milkweed that are found in Mexico. That's one of the actions. Another action is to try to work with the communities so they're able to be more self-sufficient in the future. That's also part of the plan. Another part of the action plan is to encourage sustainable ecotourism.
Every year, Jean organises awareness-raising trips. These are an opportunity for him to pass on his knowledge in the hope of seeing a change in people's behaviour in relation to the environment.
We're now in early March and the butterflies are already on their way back. They're starting to come down from the mountains. It's so important to preserve what we have, particularly for future generations, so that they can appreciate what we have at the moment. We've already lost lots of things, and if we're not careful, we'll lose a lot more. So we're putting in a lot of energy and using the monarch butterfly as a vehicle, if you like, to put the conservation message over. If we're able to preserve the monarch butterfly, we'll also be able to preserve a lot of other things. One practical consequence of the visits to Mexico is that people were so impressed by the campesinos who live in the mountains that they've decided to write a joint letter, and they're going to send it to the two ministers, the minister in Mexico and the minister in Canada, to try to help these people to improve their lot.
For Anida Montesinos, if you want the local people to be involved in conservation projects, they must be able to make a profit from it. Hence the idea of training peasants so they can work as guides in the reserve.
What's it called?
Milkweed.
Tropical milkweed.
By extending their knowledge of the butterfly's biology, they're also becoming more aware of the need to protect the forest, since without the forest, there would be no more migratory phenomenon.
The people in the villages around the reserve are becoming more and more aware of the monarch butterfly, and they're developing all sorts of activities. One of those is the Monarch Butterfly Festival.
This cultural festival, with the aim of protecting and promoting the monarch butterfly, takes place in several villages in the state of Michoacan. It demonstrates the fact that mindsets are changing and that people are proud of the monarch butterfly's presence in their territory.
I think the monarch butterfly is a good example of the sharing of territory between humans and animals. You can see it in the reserves at the moment, and that's what we're trying to do. You can't separate humans from the environment. Humans are just as much an integral part of the environment as the monarch butterfly.
Towards the middle of March, the monarchs start to leave Mexico. On their return journey, they will mate and then die. Between 1 and 3 generations will succeed them before they reach Northeast America. When autumn comes, the last generation will once again follow the migratory route south.
It's very rare to be lucky enough to find a tag. I can't believe it. I've been coming here for 15 years, and it's the first time I've come across a tag on the ground. I can buy tags from the people who live in the region, but it's the first time I've found one. And later, with this tag, we'll be able to identify the place, the time, and who let it go. It's really very interesting. I'm super happy to see that.
For Jean Lauriault, the discovery of this tag is like a sort of gift. After so many years devoted to his favourite insect, this great traveller is going to retire in a few months' time.
Retirement? I really don't know what the word means. I've already got so many projects on the go. I'm going to continue coming here for a few years more. The only difference is that when I come back here, I'll be able to take a bit more time.
Today, as you can see, people are benefiting from tourism in the forest in order to provide for their needs.
I think that we're in this process. They're starting to understand that this is humanity's heritage, and it's in their forest.
Biodiversity is like a spaceship advancing through time, and whenever we lose a species, it's like losing a screw or a connector, until we lose a connector that's essential for the spaceship to work. It's in that sense that every species is important and has a role to play in the huge system we're in at the moment.